Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. And today we are going to be covering AntiDietPilot crashing out over criticism over her GLP-1 use. So I want to go ahead and watch it. I want to complain too, which I might do that at the end, but we're going to save that. We're going to just get into it. So let's go ahead and watch. This one, she's responding to a comment that says, not a literal before and after. Cool. Because she showed one showing her face, which I can't really show that one because there's like sound, but maybe I can do it real quick. One sec. Okay, she posted this one here. So it says, watch me get my face back thanks to GLP-1 and there. And then that's where the comment came from, where it's like a before and after. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just watch it and then I'll break it down piece by piece. And we're just gonna kind of do this through all of her TikToks about the GLP-1.
About being on a GLP-1. I knew talking about being on a GLP-1 would ruffle some people's feathers, or like, you know, posting content about my progress of being on a GLP-1 would maybe hurt some people, and I totally get that. I know it's not gonna be everyone's vibe. That is why I posted a video saying, hey guys, I'm on a GLP-1, and I pinned it to my profile because I do not want anyone who feels like that would be unhealthy for them to watch that. But I also want to disclaim that I probably could have put this in the caption, but I didn't. I'm specifically talking about the inflammatoriness of my face in the before photo. You guys, a GLP-1 will literally get rid of every ounce of excess water in your body. You will not be inflamed on this medication. It's like genuinely impossible. So what I'm specifically talking about is the change in my face. Like, I'm probably not going to disclose whether or not I've lost weight or how much weight I've lost. Like, I mean, I could change my mind at any point, but right now I don't feel like I'm going to be doing that. Some people won't understand, but like when you lose your face temporarily and then all of a sudden you have your face back and you look in the mirror, every time you look in the mirror, it's like you recognize yourself again. Like for so long, I felt like I didn't recognize myself, and like all of a sudden I'm like recognizing myself again, and like that is priceless, okay? And I wanted to share it on the internet. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I know like I can't please everyone, but I tried to do this the best that I could. I knew talking about being
interesting. I'm so interested in the comments. Inflammation made my face look 5 years older. This is why I want to try one. I don't care about weight loss with the other benefits. You do you. What happened to my body, my choice? Who cares if I want to be 100 pounds? Who cares if I want to be thin? Who cares? Okay. That was an interesting comment. Okay, so that's pretty much all she got for that. Let's go ahead and rewatch it again.
On a GLP-1 would ruffle some people's feathers, or like, you know, posting content about my progress of being on a GLP-1.
Okay, so I genuinely wonder, I kind of loosely follow somebody on Instagram, and she's like obsessed with people commenting about her taking a GLP-1, like absolutely obsessed. So I don't know, this could just be an online phenomenon. I don't know how real this is, like in real life, but there's a lot of times where I feel like people that are taking a GLP-1, they're like extremely defensive about it. And I don't really know why. Like, I just don't. I think maybe it does trigger some people, but I don't know. It's bizarre to me. I may cover that person on Instagram at some point because I just feel like it's not healthy. There's a level of obsession with people's opinions on it that I see in some people. Again, I don't see it in everybody. But that's going to be a future Midsize Princess video, as she's very, very, very Midsize Princessy. I'm not going to spoil that one, but it's just something I've been witnessing in that person, and I wonder if she has a little bit of that going on here. Maybe it is a little bit of a Midsize Princess attitude, which again, I understand that, but it's not good. But I do find it funny too, in a way, how she is doing the before and after, which I'm pretty sure she's done a video where she said a before and after is horrible. And it's like, she's doing that little caveat of like, it's not about my weight though. And it's like, but it is. But it is. Which I don't really care. Like I said, for me, I don't get triggered by that type of thing. I just don't. But I could see somebody getting triggered by it. And she's very, very, very braggadocious about it. And it's just interesting to me. It's an interesting phenomenon. Like I said, I do have a future video coming about that one person on Instagram. My friend Goblin knows who I'm talking about. But I'm going to probably do that one for a Midsize Princess episode because there needs to be like a GLP1 edition of Midsize Princess for sure, because there's a lot of that. It's like, my whole thing about it is this: if people have an issue with you taking it, that's their problem. You're taking it, you're getting the risk, you're getting the benefit, you're getting all of it. It's you. It's your decision. It's your choice. It's what's available to you. And I would hope that you knew everything going into it. That's pretty much it. I don't really have an emotional feeling towards Ozempic or towards GLP-1s, but I've had a lot of people in my comments perceive that I have an emotional feeling towards it, because there are certain things online too, or whenever you're neutral online, people project onto you. And this has been a major thing where I have been neutral about it the entire time. And I've seen a lot of people that are on it. They're extremely paranoid about judgment for being on it. And that's just something like I said, I've seen it on my Instagram. I've seen it in my comments. If somebody is not loudly professing that they love Ozempic or they love GLPs, then you automatically hate them, which I find it bizarre. I just do. So I feel like she's having that moment. So let's go ahead and continue here.
One would maybe hurt some people, and I totally get that. I know it's not gonna be everyone's vibe. That is why I posted a video saying, hey guys, I'm on a GLP-1, and I pinned it to my profile, because I do not want anyone who feels like that would be unhealthy for them to watch that. But I also want to disclaim that I probably could have put this in the caption, but I didn't. I'm specifically talking about the inflammatoriness of my face in the before photo. You guys, a GLP-1 will literally get rid of every ounce of excess water in your body. You will not be inflamed on this medication. It's like genuinely impossible. So what I'm specifically talking about is the change in my face. Like, I'm probably not going to disclose whether or not I've lost weight or how much weight I've lost. Like, I mean, I could change my mind at any point, but right now I don't feel like I'm going to be doing that. Some people won't understand, but like, when you lose your face temporarily and then...
Okay, so I am skeptical about some of what she's saying. I'm very, very skeptical that there's zero inflammation on this medication. I see a lot of overglorification of the medication going on here. Again, I witnessed somebody in my life taking it, and I don't see zero inflammation. No shade on anybody in my life. I just don't see it. So I don't buy that. And like I said, I worry about overglorification because it can be a part of a toxic ritualistic cycle. It can be a part of something like that. I'm just saying, I'm feeling skeptical when I hear things like this. I'm like, this is a little weird here, So I'm just saying, it's a little bizarre.
And then all of a sudden you have your face back and you look in the mirror. Every time you look in the mirror, it's like you recognize yourself again. Like,
so I don't have this. Obviously, I've been SMO forever, right? I was for a very long time. So for me, I don't think of it that way. I think because I've done it slower, which I think there are some benefits to doing it slower. One of them is that the changes happen over time, over a long period. So like, as you guys know, I've been losing weight since primarily 2022, sustainably. So it'll be 3 years in August of weight loss. And as far as like hypothyroid recovery, it was 4 years in March. So of this year, 2025. So it's like, it's been a long process. And I feel like for me, at least, the changes over time, it hasn't really freaked me out that much. I think, oh, excuse me. Oh my God. So rude. Jeez. Jeez. I think that some of my things with that, like other people have a lot of reaction. And sometimes people online have had a reaction. I think especially around January, February, my face changed because I had like a bloating period and then the bloat came off and it was just kind of sudden, I think, to people. And so there was a little bit of a shift in how other people perceive me, but for myself, not quite. I don't know. I think for me, I just see it more as an evolution, which I would suggest that for somebody coming from a huge size, because you really have to just allow yourself to change. And again, that's just offering a different perspective from a different starting point. That's about it. So, yeah.
For so long, I felt like I didn't recognize myself, and like all of a sudden I'm like recognizing myself again, and like that is priceless, okay? And I want to share it on the internet. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I know like I can't please everyone, but I tried to do this the best that I could. I knew.
So I agree. A lot of you guys were saying that you don't really feel that bad for her because she literally called out people for doing this type of content. I don't either. I don't really feel bad. I also think too, a lot of how she's talking about it, it's very like, it's kind of inflammatory in general. Like, it's kind of ironic considering she's talking about how she doesn't have any inflammation, but she herself is kind of inflammatory in the way she's talking about it. She's being extremely braggadocious, extremely like aggressive about it, which I'm not trying to say that there's anything wrong with that. I don't really care. Like I said, it doesn't bother me at all. The thing that I'm thinking of though is like her audience. This would be like pushing on a hot button issue almost on purpose and doing it in a way to sting. So I do wonder how that is affecting her. But maybe nobody cares. I don't know. But it's interesting. Let's watch the next one. Okay, so this one I think she's talking about her journey with it.
Good morning. It's actually the afternoon. It's 1 o'clock. I've been in my new place for a day and a half, so sorry if it's...
It says GLP1 day, end week 8, start week 9. That's what it says for anybody who is just listening.
Echoey. I'm doing my injection today. I've officially been on Zepbound for 8 weeks, and my biggest happiness, well, there's 2 things, but the first is that I feel like I have my face back. Like, I have my face back. Like, this is my face. This is how I remember it. And not having as like much inflammation and shit is just making me feel so much better. I just finished week 8 and I've lost and that makes sense because I'm kind of
interesting
like,
that she
back
cut
to
that
how
out.
I remember my face before. Sadness and depression and all of that really fun stuff. I can't find my speaker, so I'm picking some music. We're gonna do Feeling Myself Whenever. But let's get it over with.
Sorry, I was worried about copyright. Okay, I'm gonna just mute it just in case. So I guess that's just her taking it. I guess we'll move on to the next one. I don't have much to say about it. Okay, so this one should be good. So this one is how a GLP-1 changed my relationship with food. Okay, so I'm gonna watch the whole thing and then we're gonna react to it.
I was just thinking about how scared I was trying a GLP-1 because like everyone shows on social media that like they're never hungry and like they never want to eat and they have to force themselves. I've been on it for almost 9 weeks and I've seen significant changes and I've never skipped a meal ever, and I don't plan to. I think in thinking about how this has actually changed my relationship with food, I don't eat just to eat. I only eat when I'm hungry, which is very different from before I was on this medication, because I would just eat for every single emotion, happy, sad, bored, lonely, like literally didn't matter. I'm finding an occasion to eat. The other thing is like, I'm just not that picky when it comes to food anymore. I used to be like, oh my God, I have this specific craving in my mind. If I don't get it, I'm gonna like eat a bunch more food to make up for it. But like now I just like genuinely don't care. Another difference is I used to always have to have something sweet after my meal. I don't do that anymore. I actually don't have any sweets in my apartment. It's not because like I can't have them, or just like I literally don't crave them. Really, really sweet stuff is just like ooh to me now, which is weird because like I genuinely had like the worst fucking sweet tooth before this medication. Obviously, I know everyone's experience is going to be different. Like everyone's body is different and they react differently. But I wanted to share my story because if that is something that was also scaring you, like just know it doesn't always happen. I have had to block people off my FYP who like glorify the fact that they're like never hungry and they're constantly going up in their dose because like they don't want to feel like they need food. Like that's fucking weird. That's not normal. And like what happens when you get off the medication? Another thing I was really scared about was like all the side effects. It is listed, I think, on the side effect like sheet that 50% people will get these horrible side effects. But I've realized over the past almost 9 weeks that a lot of those are caused by like not doing the right things on the medication. So like if you drastically cut how much water you're having, that's a problem on this medication because it's like anti-inflammatory. So it's already going to slightly dehydrate you. So if you're also dehydrating yourself by not drinking enough water, you're gonna have some issues, right? Like you're gonna feel nauseous, you're gonna feel dizzy, you're gonna feel lightheaded. And just like that, I'm full. So I'm gonna put the lid on it and I can come back to it at any time when I'm hungry again. That is the beauty of this medication. I don't know what kind of witchcraftery it is doing to my brain, but like that is a healthy relationship with food. I was just thinking about how...
Okay, so let's go ahead and break it down. Let's go.
Scared I was trying a GLP-1 because like everyone shows on social media that like they're never hungry and like they never want.
So remember, there might be some lies going on. People are not always honest about this medication. This one I do feel like she was more honest in, so I appreciated this one for sure compared to her one where she announced it.
Want to eat and they have to force themselves. I've been on it for almost 9 weeks and I've seen significant changes. And I've never skipped a meal, ever. And I don't plan to. I think in thinking about how this has actually changed my relationship with food, I don't eat.
Okay, where she does get a little weird, I'm going to break it down when she does get a little toxically ritualistic, which, again, for me, it puts a little bit of doubt in my mind. Like I said, I need to see it over a long-term process. I think a lot of you guys were concerned about my video yesterday where I said I didn't necessarily believe her at having no side effects. It's not that I don't think anybody doesn't have side effects. It's more specific to her. I look at her through the entire context of her. So the stuff she talked about before, who she was before, that all goes into how I view how she's talking about it. I look at context very deeply. And in my opinion, she has lied quite a bit, in terms of the past with her fat activism and all these types of things. Again, in one hand saying that she's perfectly healthy, being as big as she can possibly be. But in another hand, now she's saying, well, I have all this inflammation, I have all these problems, and I'm losing weight and I feel better. You see? That's where I can't trust everything she says. I don't think that she's a reliable narrator. She's very clearly within the toxic ritualistic world. Maybe she's taking steps out of it, but I don't know. There is probably some kind of psychological aspect to this medication too, and that she is using, in my opinion, because I've had similar results to her and I'm not on that medication. However, I am out of the toxic ritualistic. I have dealt with my hormonal problems. So let's go ahead and break them down.
Just to eat. I only eat when I'm hungry, which is very different from before I was on this medication because
I only eat when I'm hungry. So that's definitely better than eating for every single emotion, which is what she says here.
Eat for every single emotion, happy, sad, bored, lonely, like literally didn't.
That is toxic ritualistic. So again, that's another indication that she does have a psychological issue around food. Okay? That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing when she says that. That is also psychological. She's acting like it's purely physical. It's not. So what I would rather hear, not that I'm giving her tips, but what would make me feel like it was less toxically ritualistic is if she were to say things like, I was so hungry all the time before and I'm not anymore. She's not really saying that. She's saying I wasn't hungry, right? But I would just eat no matter what. Did I hear that right?
I hungry, which is very different from before I was on this medication, because I would just eat for every single emotion.
So she was saying, I only eat when I'm hungry now, but before I would eat for every single emotion. That's psychological. See? Pay attention to what she's saying. That's weird. Ding, ding, ding. The alarms are ringing there. So I don't like that. I don't, but some of this I do like.
Happy, sad, bored, lonely, like literally didn't matter. I'm finding an occasion to eat. The other thing is like, I'm just not that picky when it comes to food anymore. I used to be like, oh my God, I have this specific craving in my mind. If I don't get it, I'm gonna like eat a bunch.
That's toxically ritualistic.
More food to make up for it. But like now I just like genuinely don't care.
Because it has to do with control. Remember that? So if it comes down to, if it's physical, then it doesn't matter. Remember, I used the example, if you have to have a Twinkie, it must be a Twinkie, that is toxically ritualistic. If it's, I need carbs, I'm starving for carbs, that's physical. But it could be any carb. It could be even sugar in a bag. That would be enough for you if you were fiending for carbohydrate on a physical level. That's the difference between the two. So she's like, I needed something incredibly specific, or I would just eat everything in sight. That is toxically ritualistic. It's a way to try to gain control of a situation.
Another difference is I used to always have to have something sweet after my meal. I don't do that anymore.
That may have been physical. So if she has some insulin issues, that may have been part of it. That sounds like an insulin issue.
Don't have any sweets in my apartment. It's not because like I can't have them, or just like I literally don't crave them. Really
so what she says here,
sweet stuff is just like ooh to me now.
Yeah, when I started working out a lot, when my hypo got better, especially within super morbid obesity, throughout the seasons and stuff, like there were a lot of times of the year where I would be like, ooh, this, I would cut out sugar sometimes, and then sometimes I go back to it. It really just depends. But when I would cut it out, it'd be because it'd be like, whoo, it's too much. I'd feel like it was too intense or too stimulating. But typically when I feel more hypo, or like I'm really in a deficit, or I'm really losing, like all these different things, and my body really needs energy, then I will have sugar and I feel better having it. But when I don't need it, it's too intense. So it is, that part of it could definitely be physical in my opinion, because if it has to do with hormones and stuff like that, and I could see that being a physical thing. And remember too, you can have both. You can have toxic ritualistic issues and insulin resistance, for example. It's very common to have both of them. And part of recovery, especially within super morbid obesity, is you have to piece apart what is what. And it can be kind of confusing. So that's advice that I would give too. If you are struggling with this issue, figure out what is physical and figure out what is toxically ritualistic. Like I said, if it has to be a Twinkie, that is toxic ritualistic. If you're just craving sugar, that could be physical. So you have to look at it differently. And try to separate those two things in your mind. Because if you're eating something because you're genuinely hungry, or you're genuinely needing that nutrient, like, oh my gosh, I really am craving protein, I'm hungry for protein, that is a legitimate physical craving, which I would always suggest within weight loss to eat your macros somewhat intuitively, of course having it balanced, but on some days you can have more protein, some days less, etc. Kind of have some flexible room. within that so that you can be less hungry. The whole goal is to be less hungry. And you kind of need to listen to your body because it can change day by day, season by season, year by year. It can just change over time, and allow it to change. Part of the toxic ritualistic is I must eat this way forever, all the time, never have any deviation. It's not always true. So try to think about it more flexibly. That's helpful too. And that's how I've achieved some similar results without a medication, because I didn't focus so much on certain diets that were very strict, like keto or vegan. I used to try those all the time, and I would be starving when I would have them. And just allowing myself to shift my macros each day, it has drastically helped me in ways I never thought possible, where I just was not as hungry. I just wasn't. And I took care of my hypothyroidism, which is physical, and I was not as hungry either. And it got to a point where I couldn't overeat, or drastically, I couldn't binge physically, because I'd feel like disgusted, too disgusted. And so there's a lot of that where you can do that naturally too. It's not just you have to take a medication. So I want people to know that too. There are different ways, there's different paths. And I say that because a lot of people are scared of these medications. So if you really don't want to, you don't have to take it. There are other ways. And exercise is a major thing too. It really helps with insulin resistance. It really helps. So go to the gym, lift weights, do that stuff. I think that drastically helped my carb metabolism. It drastically helped my satiety from carbs, as well as for me, being hypothyroid, cutting out seed oil consumption, that also really helped my carb metabolism. So it's important to look at these different factors and just figure out what works for you, basically. But you can get similar results without the medication.
Now, which is weird because like I genuinely had like the worst fucking sweet tooth before this medication. Obviously, I know everyone's experience is
And just remember, I'm talking specifically about weight loss, okay? If you have like other issues, I'm not discouraging anybody from taking it. I'm just trying to be like, I know there are people out there that don't want to take these. You don't have to lose weight. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to, okay? That's all I'm saying. I don't care if you do or don't or whatever, as long as you know your risks, you know what's going on. It's so individual. I just could not even, you can't even begin to comment on somebody else doing that. It's like, I don't know, I only know my family's situation, so I would comment on that. But I'm just saying, you can get similar results simply getting out of your toxic ritualistic behavior, getting out of E followed by the letter D, recognizing the psychological aspects of the issue around food, and then working on your macros, figuring out your personal balance that you need to do, and exercise and things like that. They all help. So yeah, I'm going to talk about all those things, which again, you can also layer them on top of each other. You could also do that stuff while you're taking one of those medications too. There's a lot of paths here, okay? So just remember that.
To be different, like everyone's body is different and they react differently. But I wanted to share my story because if that is something that was also scaring you, like just know it doesn't always happen. I have had to block people off my FYP who like glorify the fact that they're like never.
So this part I do like.
Hungry and they're constantly going up in there.
My internet's dying. I love that for me. 1 second. Okay.
They're hungry and they're constantly going up in their dose because like they don't want to feel like they need food. Like,
yeah. So that's also toxically ritualistic. I think it pretty much goes with that saying, and that's kind of what she's commenting on. She's not wanting to be spurred on or spurred back or spurred further. Whatever is going on with her, I don't know exactly. Like I said, I think at the very least she's questioning some of her beliefs around food, which I can get behind that for sure.
That's fucking weird. That's not normal. And like, what happens when you get off the medication? Another thing I was really scared about was like all the side effects. It is listed, I think, on the side effect like sheet that 50% people will get these horrible side effects. But I've realized over the past almost 9 weeks that a lot of those are caused by like not doing the right things on the medication.
Yes, so I have a video on my channel if you want to look it up where I talk about weight loss symptoms versus Ozempic side effects. And there were a lot of side effects of Ozempic that I personally had, even though I wasn't taking the medication. So it's very important to understand if you are super morbidly obese, for example, and you get on this medication specifically to lose weight, even if it's not specifically to lose weight, you may have a lot of those symptoms because you may just be losing weight, and there are weight loss symptoms. There are things that go on within weight loss in the body. It's a very hormonally active process, and from a huge size, it's very extensive. So I went over that in a video where I basically said, like, some of these side effects, they're not just because of Ozempic or just because of a GLP-1. They are because of weight loss too. So it's important to look at that. So for example, nausea. I feel nausea today. I felt it today. I'm not on this medication, you see, but I am in a deficit. I am losing weight. So even something like that, it can be from weight loss itself. So you have to just really look at that. And I that video I think would be good for people to watch that are on the medication, because you also need to know what is the medication, what is the weight loss, right? Like, they are separate things. And I can be that control study, I guess, or at least an example of one, because I can tell you what I have or what symptoms I had, especially when I was super morbid, I think is when I made that video. And it's important to separate that. Like things like anxiety, for example, anxiety happens to a lot of people when they're losing weight. And that's not necessarily a GLP-1, okay? So you have to look at these things. That's another reason why I didn't want to take it, because I already was having so many weight loss symptoms that I felt like I was going to jump out of a window if I were to take Ozempic, because it would probably have made it worse. So again, if you're having some of those psychological issues and stuff, it may be better not to do a GLP-1 because you can control your caloric intake easier with it. I mean, again, there's just a lot of nuances there. Just be aware of it, really look at your situation, but also understand that it is not always the medication's fault that these things are happening. Now, things that can happen are like those burps and stuff, or getting very backed up, or like things like that. Those types of things can happen with the GLP-1, and those kind of symptoms can happen, or you can have the food sitting in there for a long time, that kind of stuff. So that's stuff to look at. That is definitely the medication. I was like, no, I don't know anybody who's had that from losing weight, just the alone, but things like anxiety, yeah, super common, very, very, very common. I even had a lot of panic, especially in 2023. I'd have panic attacks from some of the effects of the weight loss. It's tough. It can be tough. And I know there were people that had that with Ozempic as well. But again, that's a weight loss symptom. So again, there are issues with being super morbidly obese. It's never easy to get out. It doesn't matter what you do, what you take, etc. Some of those things are going to be tricky because it's just a tough place to be. And so just, try to go easy on yourself. And I like some of what she says here too.
So like, if you drastically cut how much water you're having, that's a problem on this medication because it's like anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. So it's already going to slightly dehydrate you.
So be very aware of how it affects your body, and definitely act in a way where it protects you. I totally agree with that. I think that that's living in reality. Make sure that you take care of yourself on this medication. You have to take care of yourself with any method of weight loss. So just really, really make sure that you're doing that. I think that that's really good advice that she's giving. And yes, I do think side effects can happen from not taking care of yourself properly on these medications. So again, don't think of it as a magic pill. Think of it as something in your toolbox that you can use to create a healthy lifestyle that can help you adhere to a healthy lifestyle. Make sure to do that, and you probably will have less symptoms. For example, if you binge on these medications, that food is more likely to sit there. There can be problems. It can be a little dangerous, especially if you're on a high dose. So do not be doing that behavior on this medication. You cannot. It's very risky, But of course, most people that take these medications, they're not doing that. So you can't project that onto everybody who's on the medication. You have to really look at it case by case. It's very, very nuanced.
Also dehydrating yourself by not drinking enough water, you're gonna have some issues, right? Like, you're gonna feel nauseous, you're gonna feel dizzy, you're gonna feel lightheaded, and just like that.
I've felt those things also within weight loss too. So they can happen within that. And I have had dehydration too, just losing weight. Your insulin goes down when you're in a deficit. If you go to the gym a lot, and stuff like that, if your insulin is lower, you don't retain salt as much. And you don't retain as much water. So yeah, I've had to focus on hydration too. I mean, it's a basic thing, but I think a lot of people that are very big, they're not used to taking care of themselves, or they're used to constantly retaining huge amounts of water. I am swollen often, but there are phases, and there have been phases throughout my weight loss journey where I de-swell. And when I de-swell, I can get very dehydrated very quickly. I'm currently swollen as hell, but that's a whole other issue.
I'm full, so I'm gonna put the lid on it, and I can come back to it at any time when I'm hungry again.
So that can help, especially if you're not within a deficit. That helped me a lot in early recovery from binge, was really tuning into the physical versus anxiety. Remember, it's anxiety based. So you have a feeling, that feeling gives you anxiety. That's why you want to eat. It's not the actual feeling, it's the anxiety piece. So you have to change how you handle anxiety. And that's the psychological piece, which it sounds like she may be getting somewhere with that. And maybe the medication is helping her cope with certain things. And that can be very positive. So let's go ahead and look at more here. This one is funny, so I just want to play it because it's funny to me.
Did someone make a video about me? Because I'm seeing an uptick in troll comments, and also I've gotten 2 emails today about interviewing about being on a GLP-1. Y'all really are obsessed with me.
Look at how happy she is.
And I love it.
I was going to say, you better say you love it. Okay, so somebody said Alan Roberts, and then Nadia did too. And me, of course. Of course me. No, I'm just kidding. She don't give a crap that I covered her. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, 1 second. Okay, sorry. I just needed to look for what was the last one. Okay, let's hear this one and then we'll respond.
You guys are upset with Remy Bader because she didn't disclose the fact that she had weight loss surgery for a year. And the commentary was, well, like, if she would have just told us from the beginning, it would have been fine. Like, her body, her choice, though. Okay. And then we move over to Janelle, which really solidified the fact that your issue is that people are not disclosing it from the beginning. Okay. Perfect. So when I decide that I'm coming back to the internet, I am asking some of my mutuals and even some of my close friends, I'm like, should I say anything about being on a GLP-1? Pretty much everyone was like, no, like, it's no one else's business. However, I'm very sensitive knowing that the majority of my audience I built while going through ED recovery. And I know, as somebody who, went through that that it's very triggering when you're watching somebody like move into a smaller body. And people with EDs or that type of behavior, we are very observant of people's bodies, and I did not want anyone to feel like they're going crazy or like what is going on, you know, without saying anything. Also, the fact that I'm not embarrassed about being on a GLP-1, I was like, I'm just gonna say it. I'm not understanding like why people still have a problem. So you have a problem when people don't disclose it. You have a problem when people disclose it. So what's the issue? You guys.
Okay, so for me personally, I have zero issue with you disclosing it. But I think she's coming across that toxic ritualistic enforcement aspect. It can be really tricky. Again, there's nothing that people hate more than somebody recovering. I know that that's so negative to say, but it's very, very true. It's extremely true. So she might be getting some of that. And if she did build her audience on that, then there could be a lot of people that have that issue and that are projecting onto her and having a huge problem.
You guys are upset with Remy Bader because she didn't disclose the fact that she had weight loss surgery for a year. And the commentary was, well, like, if she would have just told us from the beginning, it would have been fine. Like,
people just say that. They don't care. There's always going to be a problem. So this, insert Gen Z shotgun noise. It's just the facts. There's people with these issues lie. They lie. It's a problem. Lie. Lies, lies, lies. They also lie to themselves. So they may feel in their mind that if they knew from the beginning, it wouldn't matter. She's seeing that that's not true. People are lying to her. And like I said, this is interesting. This part is giving some aspect of recovery, or at least the appearance of it, because people are upset. And I think she may be shifting some of how she's thinking about food. And people are mad. So, I'm just saying.
Like, her body, her choice, though. Okay. And then we move over to Janelle, which really...
I only say, because she's made a lot of issues. She's had a lot of issues with that herself, where she's made videos criticizing a lot of different kinds of content and a lot of different things. So, I think she should try to have empathy for people that are struggling, especially if she's been there. But she's doing more of the mid-sized princessy thing of like, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I know better than you, which, again, I do it too sometimes. I can relate. I'm a mid-sized princess myself. I very much am. Extremely so. I always say that. I never say I'm better than anybody. I'm not. But if people get mad, I can take it. You got to be able to take it, girl. If you want to have the mid-sized princess energy, if you want to wear that crown, it can be heavy sometimes. It gets heavy. It can be. But I do find this fascinating to see that she's having similar issues, because I've had some people doing that on my page too, but it's very rare. I don't think most of you guys have the issue, or those of you who do, you're really on your way out, right? It can be a process to get on the way out. I don't have a lot of people actively in it because I've never reinforced it. And she has. At least I haven't reinforced it since I started my activism. I'm like, when I said that, I was like, oh, I don't know about the distant past. I don't know. But in terms of like, since I started my activism, no, I have not. So I don't have a lot of people that are totally in it. I never did because I never reinforced it ever. From the beginning, I think when I was super morbid, I'm pretty sure I said like, I don't think about how I look. Just don't focus on it. For example, that's a huge anti-toxic ritualistic thing. And I would say things like that. And I also made an effort, which I don't really like to do that anyways, just because it's bad rhetorically, but I wouldn't comment on people's sizes or people's looks or things like that. I would make sure I didn't do things like that because it can be very triggering. And I understand how that can be. So I don't tend to do that ever, or very rarely. I have occasionally with the Fab Fatties, but they are just so egregiously in the issue that sometimes I have to make a point. But I try to minimize that as much as possible because it is triggering. It can be So, and I know that, so I try my best. But use your experience. My advice to her is to use her experience with the issues to recognize where people are coming from and where you should fight them and where you should not inflame. It's tricky. It's very tricky. So, and I understand it's a hard balance, but I didn't start talking about this stuff until I knew I was recovered and until I had already thought about it very deeply. So I already had been out of it for, 2 years or even 3 years. I really made sure. I really did. I was like, I need to be sure that it's done. And when it was, then I was like, okay, I can talk about it, which is why I started last year to talk about it. But anyways, you guys, I think that's everything. I don't think there's any other ones. Let me just check real quick. Yeah, I just checked. That's everything. So we're good to go. Let me know what you guys think. I will be doing that Midsize Princess GLP-1 edition video at some point. I want that to be a long one. I'm going to react to a lot of that specific creator. And then I want to complain a little bit. So today, I had to go to the gym a third day of the week because my chest and back, within the deficit, I wasn't really gaining strength. And as you guys know, I'm trying to do Tits Out Summer this summer. So I need to work on it. So I went today an extra day, and I just want you to know that it kind of made me sad. It did. And I also want you to know that my back is already sore, and it's not even the next day yet. So yeah, but we're still working. I'm still working on getting out of the mids. I was just like, I have to put more than a mid effort. I have to do a little more to get out of the mids. So here I go. But I had to complain about that because it stung. It did sting a little. There's some benefits to it, but it makes the weight loss kind of heavier a little bit, but it makes the dopamine better. It's like, my brain is like, shh, like there's just a lot going on. And as it's getting hotter and stuff, I'm like, oh gosh. So it's tough. It's going to be a tough couple months. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. That's all I had to complain about. I will talk to you guys. Ow, my back is hurting. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace.